Hi, Chris Conway here again. And as you know, last month I celebrated 35 years in show business with the songs concert at the Musician Leicester. And it was great to see so many chums there. And I think it was my first one-man show at the Musician. So it was fun. It was a fun night. And but I also realized just lately that it's not only 35 years since I turned professional musician, but it's 35 years since I started recording and releasing albums. And as you may have seen this on my website, I've now released 170 albums from 1989 to 2024. So yes, it's become a bit of an obsession, as you maybe. I mean, there are mitigating factors. I think I've been in a lot of bands, and I've migrated and included an increasing number of styles of music, and I've been with labels and so on and so on. So there are some mitigating factors, but no, I've always loved albums as a consumer, and I'm a bit like people like books. It's a similar thing, and I still enjoy making them. Maybe I'm slowing up a bit, I'm not so sure. But yes, I just recently found in my box, which is like a box of museum, which is a box under my printer, my cassettes, original cassettes from 1989, and the beginnings of the recording. This was the first one, The Rain Garden in Another Sphere. Me and my friend Carl Pebbody, sitar, tabla player, multi-instrumentalist, we formed a sort of east-west duo called The Rain Garden, and this was our first album, 1989. That's Carl's artwork, and yes, this was recorded in the front room where I had lived in a shared house, and it was directly into a hi-fi cassette player, standard hi-fi cassette player, and we recorded through a keyboard amplifier top, Carlsberg Copper, I think, and it had a spring reverb in it. Now, I think I also had a digital reverb unit. We must have gone through that as well, because there's quite a bit of reverb. But that was it. So we had no way of making a master. We had to record, rehearse, record a track, stop the tape, and then rehearse, and try and hope we get a good take for the track 2. And if it wasn't, we made a mistake, we had to rewind back to the end of the last track, and so on and so on. So we didn't have another cassette player to bounce down on, and miracle we did it, really. And that was how it was done. I remember at the time as well, we were very disappointed that my cassette player left a little click in between tracks when you had it on record and pause, and so between each track there's, which always I thought was very unprofessional. We thought it was very unprofessional indeed. In 1990 we went up in the world because Carl bought a 4-track cassette recorder, Fostex I think, and so that meant we could multi-track, and unlike this one had to be in mono, because that's the only way we could have done it through that amplifier. And this went up in the world, and it was Back Off Beyond. Sorry, the cassette box is a bit cracked, which we did, yes, in 1980. Lots of guests, very kind of ECM style, a bit more jazzy, and we had Andy Nichols on tenor sax on 2 tracks, a sax player I played with for many years, and Renuka Russell on shakuhachi on 1 track. But yes, that was a more ambitious project because we had the ability to multi-track. Now this one and the previous album are both on Bandcamp, but I'm going to I've never put them up on the other streaming services. I think at the time when I was starting to do the digital streaming, I was a bit self-conscious that I thought the recording quality was a bit basic, as this was, but with it being mono and just recorded to cassette. Carl's 4-track cassette player had a bit of a shimmer on say long notes on the piano, but I'm going to put it up because it's part of our history, and I've been meaning to do that for some time. And here we had a label, of course, TRG, the Rain Garden label, and the TRG3 was my solo songs album. Sorry, no, solo instrumental album, 4 a.m. And that was even more ambitious. I borrowed Carl's 4-track cassette recorder, and yes, many guests on it. And the thing I always remember from this was on the final track, A World Apart, 4 a.m. It was, I used to stay up very late, and at 4 a.m. one time I heard a blackbird singing out on the street. My room in the shared house was the front door room, so that's where I used to sleep and record. And so I opened the door, put the microphones outside, and I recorded the blackbird, and it was all reverby anyway because of the street and that time of night, and I included that on the track, and that was a magical thing for me at the time, just to have the idea and do it and carry it out. Then over time things went digital with digital recordings. We did this one actually in another studio, but I also got a digital tape recorder, which meant we couldn't multi-track, but it was CD quality. And then when I joined the songs group, the Storm Thieves, that was our first cassette, 1993, and that required a new label, I thought, songs, so Oblong label was started from that. And yes, my first songs album was recorded. Also, this was not done on that tape recorder. I went to a studio. I partially recorded electronic stuff on MIDI at home, and then went to a studio. A friend of mine, Derek Roberts, around the corner, to add all the audio things, vocals and instruments. That actually got re-released by a label in 1989. Zaza Records changed the cover. Stuck a black and white picture of me on the front of a color background. It wasn't great graphics, but anyway, it did make CD at the time. And with some bonus tracks, I think I put on that. And yes, there were others. My first jazz album, for proper jazz trio album, with called Meet You There, which the trio became Happy Landings. That was me and my dapper Mr. Jazz Piano Man look. And we recorded that with my tape recorder in the basement of the university rehearsal rooms. And we did 2 more in similar fashion, Sky High and Meet You There. That's my trio with Neil Segura and John Runcie, and that was really ambitious stuff. And boy, we spent hours in those basement rehearsal rooms trying to get the tracks right so we could catch a good live take and getting the mix right. Very small rooms, not very bigger than this loft. And yes, we put hours and hours into getting those albums, and the music was the most complicated, I think. Then other I was with Jazz Orient, of course, which led to 5 albums. Also then became known as Reorient, and of course I joined Paradise Music, which was the new age label I was with for 11 years and produced 30 albums for them. They were a new label, so they needed a lot of product. And sometimes I was in collaboration with other artists who had a skill that necessarily didn't know about putting albums together. And so on really. And I guess with the digital tape recorder, I did record an awful lot of live recordings. Virtually everyone I worked with. I went through a big phase of recording everything live off the desk. So I think like Govannen and things, and myself and Dan Britton, we all got live albums through that process. And then there were different needs for different labels. So I started electronic music when I got my theremin around 2000, and that was, I decided I needed a new label, Zorpin label, administered by my friend Zorpin. And then there was after the New Age label with Paradise finished, I wanted to carry on doing some albums in that style. So that was Twilight Sky music, and more I was doing fewer jazz gigs, but I was recording jazz, arty, I would say arty jazz, if sort of improvised piano music and arty piano music, I suppose I would call it. And that needed a label, so that was Aloft label was started, and because of Aloft Studios. So yes, it's been yes, an obsession maybe, but also it's kept my mind ticking over. I'm always thinking of the next one. When I'm in the middle of an album, I can't stop thinking of what to add and what to do. I think songs albums are the hardest to do. There's that extra dimension of getting the voice right and the mix of the voice and the backing, and getting the songs arranged more detailed fashion. I think another factor in doing so many is that an awful lot of the albums are improvised. The electronic ones, and some of the jazz and the improvised music I've done. So I think maybe a good 40-50 albums are improvised. So that only takes as long to record them as it does to press record. That I make no excuses. It's been fun, and I'm very grateful that people still buy some. And stream them and listen to them. I've had some very surprising streams from old albums that have cropped up that people have picked up on. So 35 years recording. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you keep listening. And here's to the next 35 years. Maybe not 35. Never mind. Keep listening. Thank you very much. Bye.